Today's agenda is what are webs 1 to 3. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I have to give context. If you have any hopes of understanding Web 5, you at least got to understand the first 3. We will then go into what is Web 5. After that, we will understand what is the difference between Web 5 versus Web 2.5. And then finally, we're going to end off with how does Web 5 differ from DeSo and what DeSo's vision is. For those who don't understand, DeSo is a decentralized social blockchain. I'm going to leave that I'm going to put a pin in that for now. Web 1 is pretty much the launch of the internet as we know it. It existed primarily between the years 1989 and 2005. And it was regarded as the read-only web. And the focus of this was that we used scripting languages like HTML, hypertext markup language, and CSS, cascading style sheets, and sort of together formed what we regard as static web pages, okay? Web pages that you could open up using a website URL on top. And then from there, you would be able to read content, but not necessarily do much of anything else other than maybe navigate the website. Okay, there was no Facebook capabilities or Twitter capabilities to interact with that website. It was really just to open up and retrieve information. That's why we say read only. So it was static websites that pretty much contained images, links, and the ability to search for something. This over here is an example of what a Web 1 website looked like. It really wasn't flashy. There was no dynamic animations or any kind of craziness that was happening. All it was text information with a couple of links. These over here are links, and it allowed you to sort of drill down deeper into that website in order to obtain further information. So we could go once again into another link and then drill down even deeper. But there was not much else that could be done with it. And this is a prime example of Web 1. One of the more fancier versions of Web 1 would have been this site from CNN, which has been archived. It's completely discontinued, but it is still available to be viewed. Now, they took it a step further. They allowed some images and GIFs to be displayed over here on their website, and they even allowed you to search for certain content. So you could go over here, look, they had one or two things like subscribing to your email address. It all depends on at which point in the year that they released this functionality. But for the most part, it was links, images, and the ability to search like we have over here. What do you want to search? Do you want to search this? You select the option, you click on search, and all that happened was it would take whatever you wanted to search and it would add it to the URL, because the URL in the web browser allowed you to provide queries that allowed the web page to be a little bit more intelligent. That is Web 1 in a nutshell. What is Web 2? And it used to be known as Web 2.0, but we just call it Web 2 for now. So it existed anywhere from about the year 2000 to current. Everything that we still know and do is Web 2. But the difference between Web 1 and Web 2 was the ability not only to view information in a read-only state, but to take it a step further and to be able to interact with that information by writing and publishing content. And your Facebooks and your Twitters are prime examples of Web 2 in action. You weren't only able to open up and read people's feeds, but you were able to like, you were able to repost, you were able to comment, you were able to share it with other platforms. And this is what Web 2 brought to the table and is continuing to bring to the table to this day. I mean, even with the likes of mobile apps and a number of other applications out there, have you ever noticed how one application is able to interact with another application, even though they are completely separate companies? They do this using what is called as APIs. API stands for an application programming interface, the ability to interface with a website without even opening that website, okay? So all of this sort of encompasses what we know as Web 2. A lot of social media platforms are prime examples of Web 2, but there are others. A lot of businesses went from localized applications that had to be installed on Windows operating systems and got converted into web applications that could now exist on these cloud platforms like Amazon Web Services, like Google Cloud or Azure. And from there, you didn't have to connect to VPNs. You didn't have to install software on your operating system anymore. You opened up a browser, you accessed a certain website, and you were able to now submit claims, purchase orders, timesheets, you name it. Everything could be done on a browser and everything could be done on the internet. This is the power of Web 2. This is what it gave us. So Web 3 started as far back as 2001. It depends on how you see it, because Web 3 sort of evolved as the years went by. But at some point it started in 2001. Web 3.0 was coined in 2006. Web 3 itself, it removed the .o, was coined in 2014. But the original idea behind Web 3 was that it was called the semantic web. And the idea behind it was that it was everything that we know as Web 2. It was the Facebooks, the Twitters, it was online interactive capabilities. But what they wanted to do was extend it in order to include the likes of artificial intelligence and to have these huge data centers that start making use of big data technology to understand the contextual awareness of what is going on the internet that could be fed to machine learning algorithms, to artificial intelligence, in order to provide a number of things, including that of predictive analysis, the Internet of Things, and a number of other technologies that came to the fore because everything started becoming interconnected with each other. All of that, including the decentralization of data, is what was originally seen as Web 3. Obviously, that evolved. Some of the technologies became primarily focused on Web 3. I mean, AI and big data, for most people, it's still regarded as Web 2, even if they know what Web 2 is. However, it does fall under the Web 3 umbrella. But what really is seen as Web 3 is decentralized storage of data using blockchain technology, because blockchain is not only a means of decentralizing data, but it also has the ability to provide insane security on that data and make sure that there is no one person that is at the end of the day owning it. All right. I am dumbing down a lot of these concepts, but you get where I'm going with this. Blockchain is just a means of making sure that whatever data is stored is synchronized and duplicated across multiple computers across the world, and that no one person is able to actually decide or hack or change what can be done because of insane security features on that blockchain. That is what a lot of people do know as Web 3, whether you go from metaverses to play to earn games. And metaverses plays a big role as well, because using NFTs, we can now verify and create assets that are not physical in the real world, but actually digital and of worth in the metaverse, which is a place where I could maybe take something that existed like my guitar in the real world and I can move it into the digital world. And because my NFT represents my guitar, it is verified and it is accessible inside the virtual reality realm, which is what a lot of people know as the metaverse. So now that we've covered Web 3, Web 1 to 3, the question is, what is Web 5? Mr. Jack Dorsey, former co-founder of Twitter, decided the other day that he has had enough. He wants to now create his version of a true decentralized ecosystem that is way more than what we currently know as Web 3, and he wanted to call it Web 5, and he termed it, and I must be honest, a lot of it is just awesome marketing. But in my opinion, for my vision of simplifying Web 3, he just made my life very hard, because the reason why he came up with Web 5 is that it's Web 3 plus Web 2 is equal to Web 5. So if anyone's asking where's Web 4, well, it's all marketing. But let's understand what is going on here with Web 5. First and foremost, it's Web 3, but really decentralized. Now, what you need to understand is Mr. Jack Dorsey is an avid Bitcoin fan and really doesn't like much of what's going on with the other blockchains, from Ethereum to other blockchains, including various other tokens. Okay, he is Bitcoin, and he believes that Bitcoin is the true decentralized platform that is not governed by a bunch of investors and VCs that have put their money together. And if you sort of dive deep into the paperwork, you will realize that even though they're working on decentralized technologies, that there are a lot of VCs and there are a lot of investors and big names that ultimately even own these decentralized platforms. You see, this is where Jack's coming from, Jack Dorsey. So from his point of view, Bitcoin is not one of those blockchains that is affected. So his vision is now to create the true decentralized ecosystem. That is what Web 3 was maybe meant to be. He's calling it Web 5, but again, it's a lot of marketing. The reason why he wants to, it's almost as if he wants to fix Web 3, because from his point of view, Web 3, even though decentralized on blockchains and it's token-based tokenomics and theoretically people can use things like MetaMask in order to authenticate yourself against certain platforms. The data exists on the blockchains and therefore theoretically could still be owned. It depends on how you see it, but theoretically could still be owned. It depends on how many of the masses own the majority of that particular blockchain. I can't get into the details over here, but what matters is that, think of it this way, there are things that are currently happening with many of these blockchains, and we can see some of the craziness that has happened where people are able to affect the outcomes of some of these blockchains, of some of these tokens and crypto coins. This is where Jack is coming from. He's saying that he has a plan to create a network that is truly decentralized, not only from an identity perspective of who you are as a person, but that he really wants to give you back your own data, and you get to decide not only who's allowed to access your email, but who's physically allowed to access the data you wish to publish out there on the network. And this is sort of where he's going. And what he wants to do is he wants to use the Bitcoin blockchain as the layer 1 solution, but he wants to use the Lightning Network. The Bitcoin Lightning Network exists on top of Bitcoin. If you've got Bitcoin over here as a layer 1 blockchain, the Lightning Network was created on top. And the purpose of the Lightning Network was to take over a lot of the transactions that can occur and not have it physically occur on the layer 1 Bitcoin blockchain, because that's where a lot of the heavy gas fees are. Gas fees are the transaction payments you need to make. And that's usually, if you want to send $10, it's going to cost you $20 gas fees in order to send $10. And it all depends on the mining that's occurring on that particular blockchain. But the Lightning Network exists on top. And what it does is it uses a number of algorithms and transactions that group together something that could occur on the layer 1 blockchain. But ultimately, it brings down the cost to like a fraction of the price that you would pay on the Bitcoin blockchain. And it also makes the time it takes to transact on the Bitcoin blockchain very, very, very fast. Okay, extremely, extremely fast. So there's a reason for the Lightning Network that exists over there. And it is this technology that Jack is using to say that we can now build a true decentralized network from a data and identity perspective using this technology that's not going to cost us much of anything in order to perform these transactions, but it's going to still give us that true decentralization. Now, how is he going to achieve this? I've got a couple of abbreviations over here. So DIDs, VCs, DWNs, and DWAs. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go through these. These are technologies that he plans on using to create this truly decentralized platform. And as I explain these, you will soon realize, if you do understand Web3, you will soon realize what he wants is still Web3, but just a much better version of it. Fine. Never mind the fact that Web3 is still trying to identify itself, but let's keep it there. All right, so DIDs, it's decentralized identifiers. So the idea over here is that you have a globally unique identity that you are in complete ownership of, that gets created, but it exists obviously on this underlying technology, which is Bitcoin and the Lightning Network. But you have this decentralized identity, and it's like your passport or your ID. And a lot of people think, but isn't that what MetaMask is? Isn't that what maybe one or two other things are? Well, we're still trying to understand exactly what they are trying to achieve with Web5. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be part of the Web5 team or part of Jack's team. I'm here to take the information that was given to me, and I'm here to simplify it. But ultimately, just like you have a unique cell phone number for your mobile device, or you have a unique email address, you have a unique decentralized identity, something that can be used everywhere on a decentralized network, no matter what. All right. So you've got that. That's your DID. Then you've got VCs, verified credentials. Now, here's a good example. Let's say that you have a DID. So I am John Jardin, and this is my DID that proves I'm John Jardin. What if I want to go and visit the US? Because I'm in South Africa now. What if I want to go and visit US? And now the US are saying, I can see by your DID that you are John Jardin, but how do I know that you are actually from South Africa? So now there could be another DID that's focused on where your nationality is or where you currently originate from. And these could be DIDs that exist on a different level. So what would happen over here is I would need to work with those DIDs. My DID needs to interact with those DIDs to create something called a VC. A VC is a verified credential. It is a document that says, I, as a verified person who manages, who lives where in this world, I see John Jardin as a verified person, and I can verify that he lives in South Africa. And that is exactly what a VC is. It is a proof that is created from multiple DIDs to say that this is a verified person, a verified credential that allows maybe certain interactions to occur. It now allows me to go and travel the US, because that's all the US wanted to know was, does John in fact come from South Africa? All right, so that's a VC. So now, what are DWNs and DWAs? DWNs are centralized web nodes. Now, if you take a look at blockchain technology, the decentralization of blockchain technology is a bunch of nodes. A node represents a computer or a server or a laptop or even a smartphone. And that's why they call it a node, because it's not only ever a computer, it's not only ever a smartphone, it is a device that can run a blockchain technology and can store data. It has a hard drive. That is what we call a node. So a decentralized node network is similar to is pretty much what we see with blockchain technology. It is a bunch of nodes that are working together to synchronize the data using the blockchain technology, and that data does not belong to any one of those computers. It is open data. There's no ownership. The ownership actually belongs to those who created the data. Okay, so that is what we know as decentralized blockchains right now. What DWNs are they are decentralized web nodes, and the intent over here is that I, as John Jardin, can create computers or nodes that represent my data, not everyone else's data. It represents my data. And using my DID, I have access to that data. It belongs to me. So do you see where this is going? It's not physically stored on a blockchain, but rather on a mini blockchain, or what we call a sub-network that exists only for me. And the reason why I would have multiples is obviously for disaster, for redundancy, or to make sure that if it only ever exists on my computer and it gets stolen, it can exist elsewhere, maybe on my smartphone, maybe somewhere else. This is the reason why I would have multiple nodes. It represents a mini blockchain that is my data. So using my DID against my nodes, I am in complete control of not only my identity, but my data. It does not even belong to a blockchain. It belongs to me. And that is the idea over here. So what does this mean though? If I have a tutorial on how to do something, that tutorial will exist in my node network. And it is only accessible and readable because it's encrypted. It's only readable using my identifier. So if someone wants to read my tutorial via a web interface, they would request access to my tutorial, and using my identifier, I can grant access and I can take that and actually send it to this person's node. So they would have their own node network of their data, and we could transfer data using identifiers. So what it's doing is it's taking the blockchain and it's personalizing the blockchain so that there is true ownership. Now, how is everyone able to do this? Via what interface are people allowed to do this? And that is the last abbreviation of AI, which is DWAs. DWA stands for Decentralized Web Applications. These are applications that will use the protocols and the libraries and the APIs that will exist in order to interface with these nodes, with these VCs, with these identifiers, in order to create these solutions that people will be able to interface with in order to share data, knowing that at any point in time, I as the owner provide privileges to my data. You don't just get to see it. I provide privileges to this application in order to view my data. I am in true ownership. It's still Web3. And one could argue that a lot of this technology already exists and a lot of these practices are already in place, but they're clearly not adopted, and there is still a massive problem. And this is a problem that he is trying to solve. Okay, so now that we understand Web3 and we understand Web5, what is Web5 versus Web 2.5? Because Web 2.5 is also a term that gets thrown out there. And you'll notice I said over here, it depends on what you regard as 2.5. So originally, from a certain perspective, Web 2.5 was the ability to actually start doing everything online. It was the ability to use AI and machine learning and to really just like start coding online and having these platforms where you almost wouldn't need to exist on an operating system anymore. I mean, if you think about the Chromebooks that came out, there was an argument that everything could exist on the Chrome browser. You could design everything with Web 2 technology and you could sort of plonk it on a web browser and everything you needed to do was over there. That was an initial concept of Web 2.5. Because if you go now and you Google what is Web 2.5, you're not going to get much because it wasn't really a popular term. And you'll see that Web 2.5 already got spoken of before the year 2000. You can actually find articles before the year 2000 where they were already talking about Web 2.5. So we've got to be careful about what we really think it is. But let me give you what I understand Web 2.5 to be. It is a normal Web 2.0 application like a Facebook or a LinkedIn or Twitter or an Instagram, but integrates with Web 3 capabilities. That is Web 2.5. So what do I mean by that? If you take a normal Web 2 application and Entre, we are busy doing this webinar now on Entre. Entre is a perfect example of what I regard as a Web 2.5 application. They are Web 2.0 through and through, but they have integrated Web 3 technologies. They allow me to sign on to their platform using a DeSo account. So if I go over here, you can see I can log in with Google and Apple. Those are Web 2 technologies. They are not Web 3. But then they also allow me to log in with MetaMask and they allow me to log in with DeSo. So that is now Entre as a Web 2 platform integrating with Web 3 capabilities. Over and above that, if anyone knows what the DeSo blockchain is, decentralized social, you'll know that it is social applications, but they use crypto technology in order to actually tip people. So you could pay people crypto for providing great content. If I scroll down, you'll notice here's a post and I can upvote, comment or share. But if I go down, I can do the same. But at some point, look at this one. I can now support this person by tipping them a diamond, and that diamond represents crypto. It uses the DeSo token as the cryptocurrency in order to support this person. And the reason why I can support this particular person is because they have logged into the DeSo blockchain and they have a DeSo wallet, a crypto digital wallet. And because of that, Entre enables this capability against this post, and they know that I'm also a DeSo user. I'm logged in as DeSo. I have a wallet. So they go and say, well, you have the ability to send crypto. This person has the ability to receive crypto. We are going to enable this feature. So this is what Web 2.5 is. If there was no DeSo or I signed out, it becomes a normal Web 2 application. It still functions. The data is still centralized. They are in no ways pretending to be a decentralized platform. They are merely integrating with decentralized technologies as and when it makes sense. If I go to my own project, Metability is a learn to earn platform, and it is also a course aggregator. And we can see over here that I can log in with Web 2 technologies. But if we go over here to a logged in perspective of Metability, I can connect my MetaMask wallet, which is showing over here. This icon shows that I'm connected to the Ethereum blockchains. If I open up MetaMask, we can see that MetaMask is connected to this website. And these are NFTs that are being integrated from OpenSea. But Metability is actually a Web 2 application. If none of this existed, if a person only logged in with Google, then these features would simply just be disabled. It would be a normal Web 2 application. It is only on the existence of Web 3 capabilities that suddenly these bells and whistles are switched on. If we understand now what is Web 5, then what is DeSo? What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the primary web page that represents the Web5 announcement. This is what this came from Jack Dorsey's tweet. So this was the URL that he had inside his tweet when he announced Web5. And Web5 is obviously a collaboration of different companies, TBD, Block. They are the ones that are sort of coming together with this vision of Web5. And you can see here an extra decentralized web platform. Like I said, everyone, it is Web3. It's just a better version of Web3, more decentralized. But anyways, let the sales pitch continue. So control your identity Alice holds a digital wallet that securely manages her identity, data, and authorizations for external apps and connections. Alice uses her wallet to sign into a new decentralized social media app. Because Alice is connected to the app with her decentralized identity, she does not need to create a profile, and all the connections, relationships, and posts she creates through the app are stored with her in her decentralized web node. Now Alice can switch apps whenever she wants, taking her social persona with her. I had a wonderful time with this because if anyone knows anything about DeSo, that's almost exactly what they are busy with right now. If I go to DeSocial World, which is the social app that I primarily use, my account over here, if I go to my profile, this profile does not belong to DeSocial World. It exists directly on the DeSo blockchain. It does not belong to this application. My account and my feed exists on the blockchain, not centralized for DeSocial World. If I look at this and I look at my identity over here, Jardin, and here's my bio, CEO, founder of Metability and Agility, content creator and influencer. Here's my followers. Here's who I'm following. I'm going to go to a different website. I'm going to go to Overcloud. You can see over here, currently, I'm logged in as Web3 Simplified. If I go to accounts, I'm going to go and add an account. It's going to provide a pop-up. Here are my accounts. I'm going to choose John Jardin. And I'm now going to go to my profile. This is a completely different application, but go ahead and see what is shown in my profile. CEO, founder of Metability, followers 308, followers 116. It's almost exactly like what exists here on DeSocial World. That is what DeSo is doing. It is decentralizing me and my data. The only difference, though, between what DeSo is doing and what Jack Dorsey wants to do with Web5 is that my data and my identity exists on DeSo's blockchain that is fragmented across multiple computers, but these computers belong to providers like DeSocial World and other providers out there. There's about 30 of them, give or take. With what Jack wants to do, he wants to say, but John, don't put your identity or your feed or your data or your posts, your likes, your bio, your followers, your following. It doesn't have to exist on DeSo's blockchain. Create your own blockchain. Create your own nodes. That's the DWNs. And have the data sit there. And only when requested and only when allowed by you are you allowed to move that data over to an application like this. So once again, the difference over here would be that DeSocial World would not find my identity and data on the DeSo blockchain, but rather directly from me. It will find my identity from me. It will find my data from me. I will allow that data. And to give the last example, the use case, own your data. Bob is a music lover and hates having his personal data locked to a single vendor. It forces him to regurgitate, his playlists and songs over and over again across different music apps. Thankfully, there's a way out of this maze of vendor lock silos. Bob can keep his data in his decentralized web node, DWN, in his decentralized web node. This way, Bob is able to grant any music app access to his settings and preferences, enabling him to take his personalized music experience wherever he chooses. Once again, this is exactly what DeSo is doing. The difference is that DeSo is managing the DID and your node. It's putting it on their blockchain. That's the difference. Whereas what Jack Dorsey wants you to take full control of it yourself. That is pretty much the just between Web5 and DeSo right now. And I hope that the DeSo Marketing team are aware of this and take full advantage of the announcements that have been made in the last 3 days, because this is not even a gem. This is a mind the pung diamond. This is a diamond. And I hope that they are on top of this, because this is crazy stuff. DeSo are doing what Jack is envisioning. They just went about it in a slightly different way, and it is still arguably a great way. And if, by all accounts, DeSo is a great example of Web5.
Yeah, John, I want to speak on your session. It was a great session about Web5, but I have some queries about it, and I find out that it must be addressed. You said that Jack Dorsey is trying to use the Lightning network of Bitcoin. Is that correct? On this Web5 applications?
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know how many of people have used the Lightning network, but I myself have used the Bitcoin Lightning network, and there are some serious issues in the network, in the layer 2 solution of Bitcoin, that I'm about to be addressing. The vision of Web5 is great. I don't have any problems with it. I have the problems that how Jack Dorsey is trying to achieve it. For example, to explain you what is Lightning Network, it is simply was proposed because Bitcoin was facing serious congestions on its blockchain. What this congestion means is that I don't want to get technical here, but the size of one block of Bitcoin is 8 bits or a byte, right? And every block is produced after every 10 minutes. So 8 byte is very little size if you are aware of the data. If you are aware of that, and due to Bitcoin was designed to get decentralized transactions from all over the world. So if everyone uses Bitcoin, it will not work. Why? Because Bitcoin the blockchain will get congested, and for each transactions to occur, there will we will have to be waiting for days. Now, the layer 2 solution says that it will record off-chain blockchains, and then it will produce it will upload to the blockchain afterwards. But the main point of layer 2, the Lightning network, was to use off-chain transactions. I don't want to get to detail of what is off-chain transactions, but this is the simple definition. Now, what are problems I have faced in the Lightning network? Number one problem is that it does not completely solve Bitcoin's transaction fee problem. What I mean by that is it claims that transaction fee, which is one of the direct consequences of Bitcoin clogged network, will come down after technology takes transaction off the main blockchain. But Bitcoin's congestion is one among several factors that influences transaction fee. Besides, the cryptocurrency fee itself is a large component of Lightning Network's overall cost. Now, what I mean by this is that the two parties have to initiate opening and closing channel costs. I'm not getting into details of what these are, but they must be recorded on-chain first in order to get off-chain transactions. So this is quite a problem, and there is routing fees as well, which is quite a lot. The routing fees is simply moving the off-chain transaction to on-chain transactions. The second problem is that remaining online at all the times makes nodes susceptible. Now, nodes, how can I explain this in layman words? Nodes are simply controlling the blockchain network. The problem is that nodes on Bitcoin Lightning Network are required to be online at all the times in order to send and receive payments. The problem with this is that since the parties involved in transaction must be online and they use their private keys to sign in, it's possible that the coins could get stolen if the computer is storing private keys was compromised, if the computer that is storing the private key is compromised. So, however, the cold storage of the coins can be used in the Lightning Network. So these are the very major issues. There are also some slight issues with the Lightning Network, but I have felt that I must address these main issues that the Lightning Network currently have, the layer 2 solution currently have.
Allow me to use DeSo again, because I use that as comparisons to what Jack's trying to do versus what the DeSo team tried to do. Knowing what I know now about what Jack wants to do in terms of his vision, one of my biggest pain points about the DeSo blockchain is that They want to store everything on chain and that everything must be synchronized across nodes. Now, keep in mind, I'm not a seasoned DeSo developer. I don't have my own DeSo node. And there are a couple, I mean, I've read the white papers and the documentation, but there are a couple of questions that I still have. But the long story short is that a red flag in my mind is that what happens when this becomes trillions of megabytes of data that now has to get synchronized around the DeSo blockchain? I don't understand how they're going to solve that problem. Even in their specs, suddenly, in order to run your own node, you need an insane amount of memory. You need to accommodate for minimum 50 to 100 gigs of data on a monthly basis, and that's based on the current low network usage of DeSo. What happens if it actually hits? And I don't understand how they are going to solve that problem. That is one part of DeSo that scares me. But if I take a look at what Jack's trying to do, I love the idea. What if DeSo could create some sort of subnet technology that the data is not necessarily synchronized across a decentralized network that is DeSo? But what if they could in fact hand over my data to me as a subnet of DeSo? That is my data that doesn't necessarily need to belong on the decentralized network, but it belongs to me, and my identifier could probably exist over there as well. If DeSo had to do that, they are pretty much doing exactly what Jack Dorsey's trying to do, instead of on a Lightning network on the DeSo blockchain as well. That came to my mind when I started comparing Web5 with DeSo.